I don't see anyone else talking about this, but long before feminine energy and moon cycles were a trend in our world, they were written thousands and thousands of years ago in our sources in the Bible and in the scriptures. And this is a highly requested topic from you guys to explore, to talk about. And I'm just so excited because it's such a rich topic. I went to the books and I went to the sources and I found, oh my God, so many things. So I'm making this video a little different than I usually do. I have my notes here. I am going to share with you. And I think this is a topic that could be more than one video. I would really use your help here on this one to tell me if you like this type of concept where we do like a study together or study with me concept where we dive deep into these topics. It's actually, I'm so excited about this because it's actually one of my biggest visions to create and build a community of women who come together and study these types of topics that are not that common. Nobody really talks about them, but to create a community where we talk about these topics and we dive deeper into finding our own inner truth, connecting with our creator and with the divine, and studying together, enriching our minds. So if you like this type of concept, let me know in the comments because it would really help me moving forward, creating more videos like that. So this video is going to be a two-part video. The first part is going to be more about the sources and the traditions and where the whole idea for the connection between the moon and feminine energy came from. And then the second part will be more about the practical. How can we literally, what can we do to connect to the feminine energy with the moon cycle? Okay, so let's just dive in. I have my notes here. Let's just start by understanding where it all came from. So the most common place that we can see this is in in the golden calf story, where the Israelites were there. They were waiting for Moses. Moses went up to the mountain to get the 10 commandments, and they were waiting for him. And a lot of them got very impatient and they started to collect. It was Aaron actually that told the Israelites to collect gold. So they collected, like, just gold. And then he told them to collect all the gold to create the golden calf, which obviously was not something that God wanted them to do because it's working different idols, right? So what happened was the Israelite women refused to do that. And so because they refused to do that, which was really working and understanding God's work, they were granted the Rosh Chodesh, the new moon. That Rosh Chodesh, by the way, is in Hebrew is head of the month, quite literally. And so they were handed or given this ritual every new moon to have a day off, to have a day where they come together and celebrate. We'll talk about this in the practical, but and this was very profound and very unique moment because that was the moment where we can see that there's a differentiation between the feminine and the masculine. We can see it in other sources as well, but this is really interesting to think about. And so then the Rebbe, the Lebovich Lubavitch Rebbe, frames it as an evidence to, he said, unshakable truth, unshakable faith. By the way, if you want all the sources that I collected for this video, I just comment below, let me know, because there are so many sources. It's a lot, but it's very interesting if you are interested in that. So the Rebbe was talking about this being an evidence for unshakable faith. And he said that even after generations of steeped in Egyptian idolatry, the women were so convicted in their faith and in their trust and in their emunah in the creator that they refused to give the gold, which is amazing. And this conviction is what actually gets transmitted through mothers and the creation of life, because the woman's body is creating life. And I really love it. And also, by the way, there is a whole Talmudic story from the Talmud that talks about this a little more. About, there's a story that talks about the moon, and the moon is diminished, and it's really interesting. Again, it's rich, and this video could have lasted for 2 hours if I would talk about that. But let me know in the comments if you want to know more about that story, the Talmudic story. Okay, so the next place that we can find it in is the moon as, or connected to, the Shechinah and the Sphira Malchut. Okay, so let's start by understanding the Shechinah is the feminine force, the feminine divinity that's in the world. That's the feminine side or feminine aspect from the Creator, the Shekhinah. And then the Sphira, Malchut, is the 10th Sphira, which is, Malchut is kingship, and kingship is talking about representing, receiving, manifesting. Think about Malchut is kingship. So think about a queen. Think about a queen that sits in her throne, and she's so pretty and pampered and beautiful and everything, and feminine, of course. And it's really that receiving concept that we are receiving from the Creator. And of course, the feminine energy talks about receiving. We'll talk about it in a second. So the understanding here is that there's actually a really interesting teaching that the moon has no light of its own, because truly what happens is that the moon reflects the light of the sun. So that is really the concept of feminine energy. We all, men, women, doesn't matter, we all have both energies, feminine and masculine. And we talk about the energy that receives. The moon energy is the energy that receives. And that's, again, we understand that connection between feminine and moon. And I want you to think about it this way. And this is something that I truly like to think about, because if you think about feminine and masculine, I like to think about an egg and a sperm. Very basic. Because if you think about the egg sits in her throne, feminine, beautiful, gorgeous, waiting, not really waiting, she's just like minding her own business. And then the sperm is the one to compete with like millions and billions, I don't know the numbers, other sperms to compete, to run, to go fast, to push forward, and to reach the egg, right? So that's the purest way to explain feminine and masculine, and this is really the purest way to understand the feminine. And so when we talk about the moon and the feminine, we talk about the receptive. We're talking about energy that is lighter, energy of light, rather than energy that is push, hustle. That's the opposite of what we're talking about. And the Zohar, this is really beautiful. So the Zohar talks about the moon clothes herself, like literally like wearing clothes, but from a perspective of light blue, like blue thread, not this type of blue, but like light blue. It's called, in Hebrew, it's called tchelet. So around the moon, there's like a little light blue, like this kind of aura or light, or it's just radiant from her to distract other forces while she is still shining. And she, I refer to as the moon. And this is really beautiful from the Zohar, that I like the fact that the moon gets such a beautiful representation. It just, I don't know why, it just makes me so happy to think about it this way. And just as a queen or as a princess wearing a gown, and you just, it's so beautiful. So also another point and another source is to think about the whole Hebrew calendar is a lunar calendar. The whole Jewish calendar is based on the moon. Wow, this is amazing. And by the way, not only the Jewish calendar, there are other calendars in different traditions that talk about the moon, but we obviously focus on this one. And it's really so beautiful to remember that each month has its own energy, and again based on the lunar, based on the moon. And we can see the source for it, by the way, in Exodus, where it says this month is for you. And it says, "HaChodesh hazeh lachem Rosh Chodeshim," meaning this month is for you as the head of all months. This is from Exodus. And this statement is so meaningful if you think about it, because this statement was being said to the Israelites for the first time as a nation. So the first time they were referred to as a nation was talking about the moon, which is amazing to me, and just so significant. And it also goes to show how significant the moon is in Judaism. Like if you look at, and again, this is a really rich topic, I'm not going to go into all the aspects of it, but if you look at other places and other sources where the moon is referred, it's such a profound source. The moon is such a profound source in Judaism. So that is so beautiful. And now for part two, which is how to use the moon energy with the feminine energy and how to combine between the two. This is really practical. So I'm going to look at my notes because there's so many details to cover. You're going to love this. It's very interesting. So the first point is the tradition tells us about three real practices. The first one is called Kiddush Levana. We'll talk about it in a second. Kiddush Levana is physically going outside, outdoor ritual of blessing to bless the moon, the visible renewal of the moon. We'll talk about it in a second. Then the second one is the Rosh Chodesh. The Rosh Chodesh exemption from work, where women were granted a day off. They were granted a day to pause all the ordinary labor and everything else that they were doing to celebrate. And then the third ritual, or the third way to practice it, was and still is what we know today to be Rosh Chodesh groups. And then it's really the monthly gathering where women came together and prayed and just sat together, studied together, and really reflected. And it was such a beautiful time, and still is, of course. And it was also noted in something that was called Kines, which is also Tchinot. This is a collection of prayers in Yiddish, primarily for Ashkenazi women in Europe, and it was noted around the 17th to the early 19th century. Very beautiful, so interesting to think about. I haven't read them because it's a big collection, but if you are interested in them, please let me know, because then we can share this information. It's beautiful. Okay, so let's go a little deeper into the Kiddush Levana. Kiddush Levana is like is making holy. Kiddush, if you know, on Shabbat we do Kiddush. Kiddush is really making holy. And this is really halachic. So this is really from the halacha, a monthly ritual from the halacha, and it's not a modern invention. This is amazing. So it is somewhere between the 3rd and the 15th of the month, the Hebrew 3rd and 15th, so Gimel and of the month. And then ideally from day 7, so 7 would be Zain in Hebrew, and it's not going to happen in after sorry, it's not going to happen right after Yom Kippur or Tisha B'Av, because these are really potent times, regardless of the moon, obviously. So it's not going to happen in these two windows. Um, where is it happening? Kiddush Levana is happening outside, outdoor. This is it's so beautiful. It happens under open sky where we can see the moon. So think about it that it's like the time where we start seeing the moon, because Rosh Chodesh, okay, Rosh Chodesh is the head of the month. Rosh Chodesh is the time that we don't see the moon. We just go outside, we don't see the moon, right? Because that's the time where the moon is emptying. And so, which by the way is so interesting to think about with the woman cycle, right? Because the woman cycle, depending where you are in your cycle, of course, but the woman cycle, if you think about it, we can look at it the same way, because it's getting full and then it's getting empty again, and then it's getting full and then it's getting empty, and it's a cycle. There's a reason that we call it a cycle, because it's getting empty and then it gets full and then it gets empty and then it gets full. It's just so beautiful. You see, I can geek out about it so much. So okay, so it happens, the Kiddush Levana happens outdoors under open sky where we can see the moon. Traditionally, it's done as a group, often right after Shabbat ends. And there's a quote here that was, I can't see from what the source was, but I can find it, where it's kind of talking about we're running eagerly to greet the king, which is so beautiful and fantastic. You're going to love this part because this is so cute. So we put the feet together facing the moon, and we rise on our toes 3 times, reaching as if we were reaching towards the moon. Isn't that cute? Um, and then we turn to each other to greet each other with wishing them peace and inner peace. And then there's a dance, and it's just so beautiful just to celebrate the fact that the moon is getting full again. It's just so beautiful. And then um the prayer, or what they say, is you are a crown of glory for those born in the womb, for they are destined to be renewed like her, the moon, and to praise their creator. So beautiful. And the reason of doing all of this is to say gratitude, to be in gratitude, and to practice gratitude, and to practice practical gratitude, to trust that the ongoing presence of the divine and the feminine presence of the divine, and the fact that um there's always change and there's always cycles, and it's anticipating to redemption and personal redemption and collective redemption. And it's really not just about staring at the moon, it's really celebrating the fact that we have those cycles, and then we have changes in life. And I know, like, most of us are so scared of change in life, but really the only thing that is really promised in this life, or really permanent in this life, is change. And the moon shows us that in such a beautiful, beautiful way. And this practice I love so much, to physically go outside and celebrate it. Okay, so that was Kiddush Levana. Again, you can see we can talk more about it. But then we have the Rosh Chodesh circles. So in history, somewhere between the 16th to the 20th century, that's what we talked about. So the 16th, maybe the 17th century, in Eastern Europe, Jewish women wrote and used those prayers, tikkens. I'm probably trying to pronounce it, but it's called chinot, maybe in Hebrew, and it's really emotion. It's very it was very deep. They were very, very deep. Like kind of like, what would you do? What would you do in Itbodedut? Kind of like speaking really, truly, and deeply with the Creator. And it's just so beautiful, and it's in Yiddish, specifically around Rosh Chodesh. And I love the fact that it's really documented and that we can literally find it, if you do understand Yiddish, or there are probably other translations. And then nowadays in our modern society, what we see is more, and it's kind of started, not necessarily started, but it tracks towards around the 70s or the 80s, where in our generations, in our century, where Rosh Chodesh groups began to form. So women started to come together with a monthly ritual, coming together, studying, um, being together as a community, sharing, and just having a good feminine time together, good women time together, which is, again, is something that I adore and love. And another point that is worth mentioning, a woman named Pnina Adelman. She published a book in 1986 that was called Miriam's Well: Rituals for Jewish Women Around the Year, where it documented early groups of Rosh Chodesh and gave them replicable structure for each of the 12 months. This is beautiful. It's just so beautiful. And then there's obviously more. And if you want to grab her book, I would probably grab her book just to learn more about it, because it's so fascinating. And really, it's something that I can see from my bigger vision, which I shared before, to create these type of gatherings and these type of groups for Rosh Chodesh. If you are interested in something like that, oh my goodness, please let me know, because we can just build this together. And of course, another practice that you can do is, of course, stay around and subscribe to my channel, because every month, new moon, I share a new video that's relating specifically to the energy of the new moon, of the new month. And I love journaling prompts, because I love journaling. And usually I will share journaling prompts around the same month and the same moon, which can help you connect a little more to the energy of that new moon. And again, if you want a full list of all the sources I used here for this video, let me know in the comments, and I'm happy to share them with you.